right, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like Mr. Vars 2 is back at it again with another banger. Except this time, I think Mr. Vars is trying to start a bit of a war. Because, boy oh boy, with a title like this and a conversation like this, what else could he be possibly trying to do? We all know that the debate when it comes to the Gacha MC has always been something that strikes quite a bit of an annoying conversation across Gacha CCs. We all remember the video that I made before where I was just talking about how Rover was like the coolest one ever. And we had that whole debacle with Mr. Pokey calling a bunch of people bots because they said that the Rover was better than the Trailblazer. And so I guess Vars decided he wanted to throw his ring into the conversation and talk about the Traveler versus the Trailblazer versus the Rover. Which Gacha MC is the best? And boy, oh boy, am I ready to hear this one, because I think we all know who's going to be on top.
Twitter is a magical place where controversies, debates, and arguments can erupt out of nowhere and within 24 hours have literal hundreds of thousands of people at each other's throats over nothing more than one person's opinion. And I love it. Very entertaining to watch. In fact, right now there's been an argument going on over whether 100 guys could win against a gorilla, but by the time you see this, there will have been like a dozen other random things people go crazy over. The reason I bring this up is because the Gacha community is no exception when it comes to seemingly pointless debates or controversies over characters between games and stuff. One of the overarching subjects in
I think the current one right now is Skirk versus Cartithia.
that regard has been the ever-persisting battle of comparison between Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, and Wuthering Waves. Sunless Zone Zero
Why do you just leave out ZZZ like that? Him leaving out ZZZ like that is actually so funny. All right. Let's hear why he did that.
participates on occasion, but usually those fine men and women of culture have more important things to think about.
Yeah, like how they're gonna clear the next GU defense when the HP inflates about 400 more %. Yeah, no, the ZZZ players are too busy sweating in the game just to find out how they're gonna clear the next endgame reset. The only thing they have to complain about is their own game, so they're never drawing those comparisons.
For the most part, the topics people get into fights over carry little import if any at all, but a topic of debate I think is worth looking into is the juxtaposition of its main characters, Traveler, Trailblazer, and Rover. Intended to be self-inserts and the main character of each story, these three couldn't be further apart from each other in many aspects, and their respective communities have no shortage of discourse over a multitude of factors like design, gameplay, story, personality, etc. I think there's some merit to looking at this comparison in order to learn how there can be such a big difference in reception across all three.
So if you look at this thumbnail, there's a clear reason why Wuwa's MC is like at the very top of the frame, and why the Trailblazer and why the Traveler are like literally below him. I hope you understand that. I do believe that the framing and the positioning of this thumbnail is literally intentional. He could have easily brought down the Rover, but he chose not to.
More importantly, we can learn how one may have been considered a success while another may have been deemed a failure. Let's get into it. Full disclosure, I feel like I need to say this in every video involving comparison. I'm not a Kuroshill nor a Hoyoshill. I do not get paid to voice for or against either. All of what I say is from my own viewpoint and perspective, so keep that in mind. I have nothing for or against either game. When it comes to main protagonists, there's a lot
Nice disclaimer, bro.
you can do with them to add more flavor to the experience of a game.
Well, to be fair, one thing I will say is that Vars' videos shitting on Genshin Impact get the most views. And so, in a sense, he is actually financially incentivized to talk shit about Genshin Impact. Because they end up doing the best and, you know, getting the most ad rev.
In some titles, the developers want you to play through a designated protagonist with a predetermined personality, habits, mannerisms, and so on. On the other hand, you have the self-inserts, or silent protagonists, characters who, while they may have an established personality, are first and foremost intended to represent you, the player. Neither option is inherently better than the other. It comes down to how they're implemented and executed. Genshin Star Rail and Wuo's protagonists are of the latter group, self-inserts. As such, they tend to remain silent throughout most of their respective games, and their overall demeanor might come off as muted or perhaps dull so that the players themselves can project however they want their character to behave.
I hope that he does have a bit of an address of how much more the Rover has been talking in version like 2.0 and beyond, because I think that Rover has, in a lot of ways, essentially just become their own character, way less of a self-insert than they used to be in like the 1.0 versions. I think it's fair. I think this is a fair take in some of the 1.0 versions, but I don't think you can really say that anymore. So hopefully he addresses that.
But despite all three of them taking a backseat in favor of the characters and stuff happening around them, you'd be hard-pressed to call them the same, which is why there's been so much comparison between them. The consensus across most discussion platforms can be accurately summed up with the help of our favorite three-headed dragon meme. The gacha community at large generally agrees that while it can be difficult to pinpoint who is the best of the three, or if we want to include Weiss and Bell of the four, it's definitely easier to find out who is the worst one, Traveler. I already made a video talking about how Genshin really dropped the ball on their main character, so if you want to know where my thoughts lie on them, I suggest you check out that video in full. Rather than focusing on that, let's instead look at the other two, Rover and Trailblazer, to find out what they didn't right. There are three central factors conducive to a successful gacha MC, at least in my opinion. First, design. If they are to be predetermined and not player customizable, visual design matters in capturing at least the marketability and memorability of the character. Second, involvement. Self-inserts may not have the most vibrant personalities, but that's all the more reason why their involvement in the game's narrative and world carries so much weight.
If this is the criteria that he's going with, I already know why Genshin is at the bottom. Aether looks so bad, it's unbelievable. I think a lot of people picked Lumine as their Traveler because Aether just looks like stupid. It's one of the worst designs I've ever seen in a game, period.
The role they play, how their actions or inactions influence the outcome of the plot, and so on. Third, gameplay. Seeing as the MCs in Genshin Starl and Wua are playable characters in and of themselves, how they play and what role they serve in their respective game engines are just as important as their narrative
Genshin's
impact.
at the bottom.
Starting from a design perspective,
Lumine is so much worse. I see why you chose this as your name when creating your Twitch account.
I think it's a matter of
Like, he literally looks like he works at the strip club. What is this design, bro? Like, why is his belly like, what is this, bro? He looks like a Final Fantasy 12 character without any equipment on.
personal preference, and so I don't believe any game really beats out the others objectively speaking. On a personal level, my favorite two designs are male Rover and female Trailblazer. Of the three male protagonists, I find male Rover to have the most mature look to him, and the all-black aesthetic, while some may think is edgy or unoriginal, feels appropriate for the post-apocalyptic setting of Wuthering Waves. A basic look, yes, but executed tactfully. As for female Trailblazer, I think Stell has bar none the best visual design among the six protags. A tomboyish appearance with an apathetic expression, and the grey hair gold eyes paired with the outfit can make her look hot, cute, and cool all at the same time. Palace is nice too, but Stella rocks the drip a whole lot better. That being said, Aether and Lumine's more fairy tale fantasy appearances can also be appealing to some players. Lumine in particular is quite popular in the anime fanart community for her simple yet elegant appearance. Again, there's no clear winner when it comes to visuals.
No, there's a clear loser though. Oh, let's not play Vars. There's a clear loser over here, and Aether is like at the fucking bottom, bro.
The same can't be said for personality, however. One of the biggest pain points of Genshin Impact is the near complete absence of personality or even
Zack is the better VA though. Oh, for the 5 lines he says every 2 versions. I'm pretty sure bro has said 1 sentence over the course of like Genshin Impact's history.
dialogue from Aether and Lumine. They might make a few expressions here or there, but by and large they don't really say or do anything, making it next to impossible for people to either get an idea of their attitude and tendencies or project themselves onto them. Self-inserts have to be able to at least express themselves in order for us, the players, to impose our own quirks and gimmicks on them. By contrast, Trailblazer and Rover, while still mild in countenance, offer much more freedom in how you can depict them. A huge part of why Stell is portrayed as a smug posting trash goblin is because Hoyo literally gives us the option to play out the story like a smug posting trash goblin. To no one's surprise, the internet saw fit to make that her canon personality because of course they were gonna. That can work for or against them, however. Sometimes
my point of view on the whole shit posting, it's clear, right, that when you're playing Honkai Star Rail, you can say some dumbass fucking shit as the MC. It's like humorous responses, all that sort of stuff. But I feel like one thing to keep in mind is that it also makes it oftentimes kind of difficult to take the story seriously when it's overdone to such a high degree that like every single thing involving the MC becomes like a shit post. And you lose a lot of ability to like emotionally connect them to the story. And it can also be, yeah, a very immersion breaking, right? Because like some wild shit will happen. It'll be like a crazy emotional moment. And then the Trailblazer will be like, hey, trash. And it's like, all right, cool, bro.
Their levity can diminish the severity of the situation when they're being flippant over serious developments in the story.
Yep.
Even during solemn moments, the Trailblazer might have a dialogue option that can be pretty disrespectful. Rover, on the other hand, has a slightly more established personality, carrying a calm and stoic viewpoint to them, along with an overall serious manner, especially during moments when they're expected to be, and they're often in many serious moments. In addition, they get visibly angered when their friends are compromised, like how when Scar made Yang Yang disappear, and you can see Rover being clearly pissed off. Throughout the Black Shores arc and several other times you got
What I'm really hoping is that somebody like Yang Yang dies, they come back as like a 5-star version later, but they're like actually dead for a patch, and then we get to see like Rover get mad and like actually kill somebody. Like we see somebody kill like a Thronodian, or like a Thronodian like kills Yang Yang, or like a character like that, and then Rover actually gets mad, summons like all of the attributes that they have available like at once, and then just fucking nuke something. I would love to see that. And then Yang Yang gets revived as a 5-star. That would be so good. That would be amazing.
Got to see their optimistic perspective and sense of humanity on full display, especially when it came to other characters, such as how they treat a Shorekeeper like a real person despite being nothing more than sound frequencies given form. While Rover may give off the impression of being uncaring, brooding, and bland, the moments where they do show personality end up really shining through.
We already had that with Kartithia. Kartithia's death, I don't think wasn't as impactful because A, we kind of got introduced to her over the course of one patch. Yang Yang, with the fact that she sends us mail every single survey update, she's always like sending us like gifts and goodies. We always get like check-ins with her at the start of various like quests, various storylines. Everybody knows about Yang Yang. Everyone knows that she's like a fan. She's already, like, saved us before when it came to, like, the situation with Scar at the start of the story. And I'm gonna be honest here, right? We also killed Kartithia. Like, we killed her. So, like, it isn't as impactful for us to, like, get angry at Kartithia's death when, like, bro, we did it. Like, it was us. So, like, there's... What, you're going to be mad at yourself for doing that? Doesn't really work. But if somebody else hurts a member of the cast, that's when you have that sort of like righteous anger coming down.
Stark contrast to Genshin's Traveler, who barely shows any emotion at all or does anything to highlight what type of person they are.
I'm sorry, I gotta play this cutscene every single time we talk about the Traveler being a fucking idiot. I'm sorry. We're about to... You already know which cutscene I'm about to bring up, guys. You already know. Y'all remember this?
They're here.
Just like I said.
I love this cutscene so much, bro. Just look at what the Traveler does, bro. It's like Roundly and Corinne are over here saving Fontaine from the water that's gonna evaporate everybody. Bro's out here overworking. Boom! And it's like, oh shit, it didn't work. We gotta run. We gotta run so the water doesn't kill everybody. All right, what's Traveler about to do? Hey, use Geo to block it.
3,
use Arrow to speed Ryosley up.
1.
Hey, time to do something. Hey, any moment now, surely he'll do something. He just sits there the entire cutscene. Bro literally just sits there the entire cutscene. This is actually the only movement that they have during that cinematic. They get blown away by a gust of wind that all the other characters are just like not even... They're not even fazed by it. No reaction. No reaction. Bro is about to get fucking lifted off his feet and sent to the Nether Realm. This shit is pathetic, bro. Like, you... How... It's fucking pathetic, bro. Like, it's... It's actually so cringe, it's unbelievable.
That brings us to the second aspect of the Gacha MCs, involvement. What purpose do they serve in the overall game? And
Nothing.
that's yet another element where I find Trailblazer and Rover to excel, while Traveler falls short. Broadly speaking, the main dissonance I feel from Aether and Lumine is how I feel as if they can be removed from the game and the events of most of Genshin's dominant narrative can still unfold in the exact same fashion.
We just saw proof of that. Yeah, nope. Vars is 100% spinning. We just saw a cinematic where bro did literally nothing. All he did was start the cutscene.
Firstly, the fact that it's almost implied the entirety of Teyvat is just filler to them. I know that can be a pretty hard statement to make, so let me elaborate. In contrast to Trailblazer and Rover, who are established to be the same person with just a male and female version, Aether and Lumine are just siblings, not counterparts. Therefore, they have their own separate roles in the game, with the sibling you chose being the main character and the one not chosen working with the Abyss.
I'm gonna be real. The sibling you didn't choose is actually the main character. Because they're the only one that fucking does anything. You actually choose the side character at the start of the game.
This affords the Traveler a huge potential advantage and appeal over the other two, as there's an entire potential subplot involving the main characters themselves. However, during one of the encounters between them, the other sibling straight up tells Traveler to futz about in Teyvat for a while, sort of diminishing the significance of the entire Genshin narrative given the Traveler doesn't have a personal motive for participating in the story outside of gathering more information to find their sibling. They go from one region to another, preventing nation-ending calamities, and then at the end of each one they're like, yeah, I'm kinda just looking for my sibling. At least to me, it feels as if they're just passing by instead of planting actual roots in the places they check out, which is only further emphasized by the fact that they weren't even intending to be in Teyvat anyway.
Isn't the storyline of Genshin? Hello, I'm looking for my sister. Before I tell you about where to find your sister, we have this massive problem in this region over here that's causing a lot of issues. Alright, I'm gonna go solve that problem. Hey, now that we solved the problem, could you tell me where I can go find my sister? We have no information about your sister. Why don't you go to this other region instead? Then you go to the next region and you're like, hey, I heard you all could help me find my sister. Sorry, traveler. We have a big issue right now that's going to prevent us from telling you about where to find your sister. Alright, let me go solve that issue so you can help me find my sister. Alright, now that the issue is solved, could you help me find my sister? Hey, traveler, we have no idea where your sister is. Maybe you should go to this other region over here and maybe they'll tell you where your sister is. And they just did it over and over and over and over and over and over again. It's literally just Super Mario. Genshin's story is just Super Mario. Your princess is in another council. Really?
Only ended up being thrown here after fighting the unknown god. One could argue having an ultimate goal of reuniting with their sibling is a big motivator for why they're going from one region to another.
I'm gonna be real. This video isn't which Gacha MC is the best. This video should really be titled Why the Traveler's a Piece of Dog Shit. That's the real video. The Traveler sucks balls.
But not much character development takes place
And it's based as hell, I love it.
if at all. The destination is there, but as the cliche goes, it's all about the journey, and I don't really know if the Traveler cares much about that journey. They might be going to new regions, meeting new people, and solving new problems, but none of it feels like it brings them any closer to their end goal, which ultimately makes it feel like a filler journey. For Trailblazer and Rover, it's a lot more personal.
People are complaining about Wuwa having filler patches. Every Genshin patch is a filler patch. If you really think about it, every Genshin patch is a filler patch.
Both of them are amnestic, having no idea of who they were before the events of their respective games, and both are traveling from one region to another in the hopes of finding a sense of who they are. The Trailblazers in an opposite situation as a traveler. They don't have a destination at all. They do have a goal to learn more about themselves and why they have a galaxy-shattering force inside them, but the whole mantra of the path of Trailblaze is to quite literally not have an end goal, to keep.
And I think this is the thing that really puts me off the most about HSR's story. People talk about how HSR might actually have good story overall. It's just the storytelling that's bad. Let's be honest here, ladies and gentlemen. The story of Honkai Star Rail literally is, let's just go to random places and go solve problems there. Zenless Zone Zero, in my opinion, is actually the only big Hoyo game of the big three that actually has a story that's being told. HSR is just, let's go to random places and go solve the problem. Okay, we're done here. Let's go to the next random place. Huh?
Keep going from one place to another, doing whatever they want. By extension, in Starl, it's less about the Trailblazer individually and more about the Nameless as a collective. Seldom do you ever find it being just Trailblazer. They're always together as a group, making Starl more of a team-focused narrative rather than a solo journey. I suppose the main mystery is what their association with Kafka and the Stellaron Hunter signify, but apart from that, at the beginning of the game, it was stated by Kafka to basically just vibe out and have a good time for now.
You know what? Maybe HSR requiring tailored teams for the content. Like, you gotta pull all the Super Break characters to use the Super Break team. You gotta pull all the Remembrance characters to use the Remembrance team. You gotta use all the follow-up characters to perform the follow-up team. Maybe it makes sense. We should have seen it coming, because you gotta have the story team for everything. Yeah, you literally can't do anything by yourself in this game, not even the story.
Rover starts out the same way. Their main motivation is to rediscover who they were, yet at the same time they're also equally invested in discovering new things, starting a new life, and getting involved with the people around them, further highlighted by the personal decisions they make, such as their aforementioned care for humanity like the Shorekeeper arc. That entire part of the main story was a personal journey. We haven't seen that within Genshin outside of maybe the two-parter with Albedo and Dragonspine, and even then it's hard to say whether or not that story quest had any lasting impacts on the
Half of Genshin Impact's players weren't even old enough to experience this.
lore of Teyvat thereafter. More pressing than Rover though is how the world sort of makes it a point that they're the centerpiece of the story. Even though the spotlight is shared with the other characters, as shown in Renacida where it's a group effort where you team up with Zani, then Phoebe, then Carlotta and whatnot, the characters take a vested interest in Rover specifically, implying that it starts and ends with them. There's even a heavy suggestion that Rover might have been a being of great power and influence, evidenced by Jue calling them Arbiter and being the apparent founder of the Black Shores, which is a major distinction between them and Hoyo's protags. Rover was in this world before and had stuff going. They're not some new guy coming in and getting things done. There's a hugely established narrative surrounding the character which adds to their intrigue. Among the three characters, they're the ones with the most main character energy, making us, the players, feel like our actions and our involvement in the story matter a lot more than just being an interloper in affairs not concerning us.
So I think this is kind of like the part where I hope Vars addresses the whole like self-insert versus like developed character thing, because I don't really think Rover is even that close to a self-insert anymore. Yeah, what we talked about before, especially after 2.0.
So having said that, now would be a good time to move into their gameplay aspects. Much like how Aether and Lumine are depicted as a silent observer surrounded by the actual important people in the world,
Useless.
that ends up being represented by their gameplay, where they have extremely little, if any, presence at all in
Useless.
the metagame. From the perspective of power level, it's not a controversial thing to say that Traveler is a very weak unit, one
And
of the
useless.
weakest in the game, further damaging their image in the eyes of players, where in the story we see them clashing against these god-smiting threats, but then in-game they can barely do anything of import.
Because they're
Real
useless.
narrative dissonance can really screw over a character's reputation, and Traveler is proof of that. Kind of hard to like your main protags when you don't see them kicking ass in the actual gameplay like they do in the story.
And they're useless.
Take Goku for example. He's the strongest character in Dragon Ball, but then imagine him being the weakest character in every single Dragon Ball game. It would rub people the wrong way. As for Trailblazer, just like how their involvement in the story takes the form of being part of a group, the Nameless, instead of a lone wolf, we find their later iterations to be emblematic of just that.
I think it's also fair to say Trailblazer is useless on their own. The only way any of these versions of Trailblazer have a use is when you have the 5-star unit that they work with. Then again, that's sort of almost every unit in HSR, but the fact that it's like, okay, I'm a buffer. I need somebody to buff. And that person costs $300 or I'm useless.
Harmony and Remembrance Trailblazer are two of the most pivotal supports in the game, while at the same time relying on a proper team to make the most out of their supportive utility, just as those teammates rely on the Trailblazer.
Isn't Spectral Rover the same? If you're saying that Spectral Rover is the same, you don't actually play the game. Yeah, you don't play Wuthering Waves if you're saying Spectral Rover is the same. If anything, the 5-star limited characters are useless without Spectral Rover. They need the MC to work. The MC doesn't need them.
It's a very clear representation of the close relationship the Astro Express crew has with each other, where everyone looks out for everyone. Honestly, it's almost poetic. Physical Trailblazer sucks because it was their first path and the one that was made before they joined the Nameless. Fire Trailblazer also sucked, but there were signs of team play coming in. Then came Harmony Trailblazer, which was after Kylus and Stell settled into their new life and found family. By the events of Amphorius, they have an incredibly strong bond with their new friends and family, demonstrated by Remembrance Trailblazer being the strongest of the 4 paths. You could also maybe interpret their increasing strength as them getting better at using the power of the Stellaron inside them, as well as the blessings of the different paths they come across. And I'm sure many of us were under the impression that as Traveler gained access to more elements, they grow stronger and stronger like the Avatar or something.
Instead, you got the little Bubble Blaster Hydro Traveler who like they intentionally designed them to be dog shit.
But they didn't, whereas the Trailblazer did. Rover is where things get interesting though. Just like how the lore strongly implies they were a powerful figure in the past, the Rover of today was depicted in the same fashion through their gameplay. From the very beginning, Spectral Rover, they were already strong, much more so than Animo Traveler or Physical Trailblazer, a good general utility attacker with a bit of everything to them. Their Havoc version's even more powerful, especially for a free attacker, on par with it not potentially beating out multiple 5-star attackers. Arrow Rover might—
I think it's very fair to say that Havoc Rover is actually better than Encore and Kaltaro.
be in a weak spot right now, but we know that it's only because the foundation hasn't been put in place yet. They need more weapon refinements, sequences, and a team that can actually make use of erosion.
That's also true. Arrow Rover has a lot of power tied to their weapon, and it's only R1, and we also only have, I think, one dupe of their sequence nodes. And if you look at Arrow Rover sequence nodes, they're like all 5 of them are damage related. Like, it's literally like massive multiplier increases on like all of their abilities.
I think it's safe to say that Kuro plans to keep all aspects of Rover decently strong for a very balanced and versatile character. That's what Rover is ultimately meant to be, the backbone of your account. They're being designed in a way so that any player with any assortment of units can find any reason to use them, just like how their presence in the Wuwa lore was a ubiquitous one. The main character doesn't necessarily have to be the strongest one, but they do have to be someone that people can use in a general sense. They have to be present in the metagame. Traveler failed to accomplish this with most if not all of their elements. Trailblazer started out bad and got significantly better as time went on, meanwhile Rover was good right from the start, and is staying good. I think the success of Trailblazer, and especially Rover, comes from the fact that their actions, influence, and motivations actually carry significance in the scope of the worlds they're traveling to and the people they meet on a personal level. Trailblazer and their found family going from one place to another saving worlds because that's their mission, not because they're busy trying to find their long-lost sibling. Rover having once been this influential if not powerful figure who is trying to finish what they started, uniting humanity against the lament that created Wuthering Waves in the first place. And then, their gameplay is being used to portray their individual journeys. As self-inserts, the player is given freedom to decide how they bring value to their teams and how they succeed in their missions, whereas in the case of Traveler, it's almost as if they haven't developed at all, which might—
I think that's a fair comparison. I think if we're looking at it from like a power angle and like how it fulfills like the power in the story fantasy, I think it's fair. The thing for me is that when Wuba only has 3 characters for a team, and then HSR's coming out with like 4, and you kind of need like the whole team, or it feels like you need the whole team for either version of like the Trailblazer to work, and then you have the power creep coming in HSR, where you actually do need like the whole team for stuff to work out well. Yeah, I wonder how good the Firefly or the Rappa team is with Harmony Trailblazer when you don't have Ron May. I wonder how good the Remembrance TB feels when you don't have the Remembrance DPS.
Might be why they don't really get any stronger with each new element they assimilate. They're stagnant. That to me is why there might be such a positive reception towards Rover and Trailblazer. It comes down to the central idea that they legitimately matter in their respective games. What do you guys think about this? Do you agree or disagree with my points? Let me know in the comments down below. That'll be it for today, so if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you'd like to like and subscribe.
Alright, awesome vid by Vars, yet another banger. Though I will be honest, right? I will be honest about one thing. It does kind of feel like he did give HSR a little bit more credit than it was due. Because I think he really could have dove into how HSR kind of like has opened the door to way more sort of like predatory stuff in the design of their MC, where again, it's like Harmony Trailblazer was strong, right? Cool. But it literally was the reason why they released Super Break. And the 3-4 limited characters centered around Super Break. Remembrance TB, fun, cool, strong, but is literally being used to introduce a whole new path full of light cones that can't be used on other characters. And the design of the new path is solely so that old light cones can't be used with the Remembrance characters. And so it's just like, it feels like so janky, it feels like so off, to kind of like have this whole situation going on with, because you already know what the next, HSR MC is going to do. Probably introduce a whole new team archetype that's going to require a whole new set of 5 stars for them to see relatively any real use at all. And it's like, sure, the power fantasy might be there for some people, but I feel like the overall design and the impact it has on the game should have been something maybe explored a little bit further over here. But overall, I'm gonna be honest, this video mainly really is just dunking on the Traveler and talking about how dog shit they are. I think that was the main focus of it. And the Traveler is just so exceedingly bad and so exceedingly trash, it kind of just dominates the conversation. So yeah, that's my point of view on it, and I think Vars was entirely right about all those points. Let me know what you all think. Peace.